morning. Today we're joined by Dan Plizga from the city of Rochester. Thank you for joining us, Dan. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your role at the city and what exactly you do?
Sure, Mike. So yeah, my role at the city is I work in the Public Works Infrastructure Maintenance Department, and here we take care of all of the streets and sewers and all those sort of things within the city of Rochester. And yeah.
So you're the supervisor of that department, correct? So as the supervisor, and we'll get back to how you got to exactly where you are, but as the supervisor, what exactly does that mean? Being in charge of, there's a lot of infrastructure that needs to be taken care of in Rochester. So what does managing that and supervising that role, what does that mean exactly?
So we probably have about 40 employees, field employees in my department here. And yeah, basically my role is organizing the work tasks. So, a lot of our work is seasonal. So in the winter, we're going to plow snow. In the spring, we're going to fill potholes. Summer, we're going to do paving and construction projects. So it's kind of managing all of those needs and scheduling the work, the crews, the equipment, making, seeing how our budget is, can our budget support the work that needs to be done. So a lot of planning and managing people, basically.
So I'm going to get back to that as we move forward. But what made you decide to get into infrastructure? What made you decide to get into this role?
So my background is actually, my degree is construction management. So my first 10 years of my career, I actually worked for a commercial general contractor in Rochester. And I was a project manager building, buildings, schools, hotels, work for the clinic. And, basically just needed a change, kind of a refresh. So I was looking to the city, to a municipality. And, was just kind of drawn into that field. A lot of similarity, as obviously, granted it's buildings versus roads, but a lot of the management techniques are the same, and still reading plans and accomplishing work tasks and scheduling and budgets and that sort of thing. They all kind of cross the lines there.
So when you got into, what made you decide to get into construction management?
So I guess I've always been kind of fascinated by buildings, and they're, especially these days, they're very technologically advanced. But you look at a building, you take a piece of ground that just has grass growing on it, and then say 1 to 2 years later, you have this building that people are maybe living in, or it's a school or a hospital. I've always just kind of been fascinated by that. And then also just some of the big equipment is always cool. Cranes, earth moving equipment. That's always been something that's been fascinating and interesting to me. So I knew I kind of wanted to do something like that. And the good thing about the construction field is that, you can still be in a supervisory or management role, but have hands-on experience. So it's kind of a hybrid of both. And there's a lot of positions that if you want more hands-on, you could be a field superintendent, or, if you want to stay more in the office, you could be a project manager or estimator or scheduling. So, there's a lot of great variety in the construction industry.
So when you were in high school, we're talking to a lot of high school students here. So when you were in high school, how did you move toward that path? What classes did you take? What classes would you suggest that students in high school take to kind of move forward in this career?
Sure. So the high school I went to was a smaller private high school, and so they didn't offer a lot of the more hands-on courses like maybe carpentry or some of that stuff. I did take a drafting course and really enjoyed that. That might have been one of the courses that kind of got, my eyes open to it. But, the other important courses, I'm sure everybody always says this, but, math and science are very important. You might not, granted, you might not use a lot of those components. It's the theories in general, it's the concepts, it's understanding the whole scope of that. So, it's important and it comes into play. So that'd be my advice. Yeah. Focus on a lot of the math and science classes, and anytime you can get exposure to some of those more hands-on or specific classes, I think it's great.
So when you were in high school or college, did you do any internships? Did you do any in-person or I guess today would be virtual type experiences that gave you an idea of exactly what this industry looked like?
Yeah, so in college, I did 2 internships with this commercial general contractor, and that's actually where I got my first job from. So luckily they were in Rochester, and so that worked out, living at home for the summer. But yeah, I mean, going from school to work is obviously, it's the real world. Here I am, I was a freshman in college, just finished my first year, and then all of a sudden, first day of work, at this internship, go out on a job site, your real world, things kind of jumped off the level in a hurry. So, my other advice would be, even in high school, if you can try to get a job, I know it's easy to get a job at, whatever retail store or something like that is probably a pretty common job, but try to get a job more in a hands-on field or like a technical field, because even a little bit of experience where you can list that on your resume as you're looking for internships or your first job really goes a long way. Even if you just have a small tidbit of a job that you can tie to the career you are interested in, helps a lot. So that would be my advice. It's probably, it's easy. You could work at the same place throughout your high school and college career, but, try to break it up, get different experiences is very valuable, I would say.
So talk to us a little bit about your college degree, and would you say that getting a degree in exactly like yours is required, or something similar would be okay as well to do what you're doing now?
So yeah, so I went to the University of Wisconsin Stout, and they're a pretty big school for construction management. Do you need a 4-year degree to get where I am today? Not necessarily. A lot of it comes down to experience. But the good thing about a construction degree is that, like I mentioned, it's very versatile. You could be more of a field position. There's a lot of office positions available. But, the other thing with, like when I went to Stout, they brought in a lot of different companies all the time. So you were always getting an idea of, do you want to go build a nuclear power plant in Colorado? Here's what this company does. There's just so many different eye-opening experiences that you can have. But there's also a lot of 2-year associate degrees in the construction field, whether it be like surveying or civil engineering technicians or GIS, like mapping software. There's a lot of those degrees also to kind of get your feet wet.
Excellent. So one of the things that I think is maybe a little bit of a misnomer is that once you get your degree, whether that be a 2-year degree or a 4-year degree, or frankly, just after you graduate from high school, your education is done. And then everything is just work after that. Do you find that to be the case, or do you have a lot of things you would do that you would consider maybe a little bit of continuing education?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, my experience was, when you look back at it now, college was, it gave you the very basics. You're looking at examples of how to do this, examples how to do that. When you get in the real world, things exponentially get more complicated in real world than what it was like in college. So I think it's a great foundation, but when you get that first job and you're doing your career, it's quite a bit different and quite a bit more complicated. But I learn something new every day, and I enjoy the challenge of it. So I think you're always learning, obviously, never stop.
So why don't you tell us a little bit more about your journey? I know you said you went to a private company right as you graduated from college, but can you kind of map out that journey, what it looked like? I'm guessing you didn't bounce right into a supervisory role after you graduated from college. There was a few steps in between there. So can you map out that journey a little bit for us?
Yeah, certainly. So I started out in kind of obviously an entry-level position, which would be like a field engineer, project engineer is kind of how it's termed in the construction industry. So, you're assisting somebody higher up, the main project manager. Like in my case, I was updating plans. I would work and do, field scheduling. So you think of a building, there's a lot of deliveries. So I'd be coordinating those deliveries with companies, making sure everything shows up when it's needed. Obviously, there's a lot of cost things that change. Contractors need extra money because this or that. So a lot of that coordination. So from there, I moved into a senior role, like a senior project engineer, field engineer. So you're basically taking on more responsibilities. I ran some smaller projects, that they gave me kind of on your own. You're starting to, again, the theme is the same. You're basically challenging yourself at each step in your career. And then where I ended up with that company was as a project manager. So I was running, my own projects. So, it's kind of crazy to think about. This company is giving you a budget of say $6 million and here, build this building, and it's all on your shoulders. So kind of cool and challenging at the same time. So, and that was great. It was a great career that I had there. And the thing I really liked was I liked the field side of things. So I liked working with the crews. We had a lot of carpenters that we employed with this company. And, I really liked working closely with them. Coming to the city here, basically there's 30 to 40 field staff that, I'm giving direction every day to get stuff done. And we kind of celebrate our daily victories on the work tasks we complete. And so, I really like the team aspect and getting things accomplished as a team is what really drew me to the city.
So can you give us a little bit more detail about what that team aspect and how you as a supervisor or even as a employee before work to kind of encourage that team aspect of the group that you're working with?
Yeah, I mean, as if you're not already acclimated to it, I guess, teamwork is something that's always tossed around and it sounds great, but in reality, teamwork is hard. It's, you have people that come to work that don't want to come to work. You have some people work really hard, others don't. So, to start out with, it's challenging, managing and working as a team is challenging. Just think, if you haven't worked yet, think of your family, maybe you got siblings. Some days they're happy, some days they're not, it's that same sort of thing at work. But I think that what I've found in my experience is that people appreciate hard work and they appreciate planning. So the way I look at it, the better that I can plan and the more work that I can invest for my team, it just makes their jobs easier and more enjoyable because there's less questions. They know what the vision is, what we're going to try to get done. And then, we kind of celebrate the victory together and all the work that we were able to accomplish. So
Could you talk a little bit about, starting pay? Students who are watching this are likely going to want to know a little bit about what the pay range looks like if you're getting into construction management. You don't need to get into specifics, but if you could give us kind of a range of what people should expect potentially when they're moving forward, that would be appreciated.
Sure, yeah. So I mean, starting out, like I'll start out at the internship. I think you could probably expect, $15 to $20 an hour, which is, not great, but when you're going to college, it's a decent job. But if you were to do an internship with a company outside of Minnesota or your regional area, they'll likely pay for your lodging and travel, which is kind of cool, coming out of high school or college, so let's say you want to work down south for the summer, they'll pay you to go work down south and, fly you home every couple weeks or whatever. So that's kind of interesting. Moving up from there, entry level construction type management or estimator, field job, I would say these days would probably be between 25 to $35 an hour. I'd say for the most part, those positions are salaried, but some might be hourly. And then, as you get into the project manager role, I'd say that's between probably $40 and $60 an hour. And then, when you're getting into the senior level role, probably, mid-career, maybe 40 for the age, you're probably looking at, 60 to 80 plus dollars an hour. So, I think the construction industry has got great jobs. There's a lot of room for advancement. A lot of, if you don't like one certain aspect of it, there's a lot of companies that do a lot of different things. So it's really a good foundation, in my opinion, for a lot of job opportunities.
So on that note, can you talk a little bit about what the industry looks like? Is there a lot of competition to get the jobs? Is there open jobs that need to be filled? What should someone who's looking into this industry expect when they're moving forward?
Yeah, I mean, so obviously construction is somewhat governed by the economy. But overall it's a pretty stable market. Obviously, buildings always need to be built, maintained, renovated. So there's some stability there. As far as competition, I know back when I graduated in the early 2000s, it was like 99% placement rate from Stout. So, it was very good. And I'm not for sure on this, but I would speculate it's still high 80s to the 90s, just kind of off the cuff here. The construction market's still strong. There's a lot of growth. And yeah, I would think, if you do good in your education, you're a hard worker, and somebody who wants to work, I don't think you'd have any issue finding a job.
Can you talk a little bit about the soft skills that are required? You really touched on this a lot before when you talked about teamwork, but I just want to see if you can maybe dive in maybe a little deeper into what kind of soft skills you would think are necessary to do the work that you're doing.
Yeah, so I think, in this day and age, I think the important soft skills would obviously be simple things like, showing up to work on time and being available to work, coming to work with an open mind. Techniques change, the way we do things changes, especially with, COVID and stuff that's going on now. Flexibility is huge. The way we did something last year, maybe we can't do it that same way for a number of reasons. So, yeah, and then I think, just the mentality of, what's your job? You're here to, whoever the company is, you're here to put in a hard day's work and accomplish the goals. And, you're going to face challenges. Things are going to be stressful, but that's, part of the fun for me is figuring out how you work through that, how you can improve the outcome of things.
So what does your average day look like? I would guess you probably don't really have an average day with what you do in construction maintenance, but what does an average day look like for you? What are some of the things that you look to accomplish?
Sure. So yeah, I would say, in general, in the construction industry, you're probably starting your day a little earlier than maybe a normal career. Probably 6 to 7 o'clock is when, most construction jobs typically start. So like for me, I get here at 6, and then at 6:30, we meet with our crew leaders and kind of have a half-hour meeting to talk about what we're going to do today, what equipment everybody needs, what people they need. And then at 7 o'clock is kind of when the remainder of the team shows up, and they often get started on their tasks. And then I'm following up on emails, doing scheduling, seeing, kind of looking ahead on the week, kind of what we need to get done. Obviously, in activities like we do outdoors, the weather comes into play. So I'm always checking the weather, trying to guess if it's going to rain or snow or not, because that affects obviously what tasks we can do. Then kind of mid-morning through early afternoon, I'll try to at least get out in the field and look at some of the projects we're doing, what the crews are accomplishing, seeing if they're having any challenges, or if they need materials or things aren't going like they thought. And then I typically end my day in the office. People come in, employee issues, or, people need time off, or doing any kind of last minute scheduling for the next day.
So you touched a little bit on the need for flexibility, both because of what may go on during the day and also because of budgeting. I don't know that a lot of people really understand the flexibility that's needed from a budgeting perspective, whether that be in the private industry or city. Can you talk a little bit about how things outside of your control impact what you can and cannot do throughout the day?
Yeah. So, I think a good example, and this would apply to both city and private, so like when the COVID thing hit, I'm sure that affected pretty much every company. So like at the city, for example, they said, okay, you need to cut your budget, say 20%, we need this money, you can't have it anymore. So obviously for us, that came, right in the spring, when we're focusing on, we need to get roads paved, we need to do as much as we can with our money, because I'm sure everybody knows what road maintenance is like. You can never have enough money to give everybody a new street. So we're already kind of stretched thin. So, we basically sat down and said, what can we do? What can we cut strategically, so that, it'd be easy to say, okay, we're not going to pave these roads and the residents will just have to deal with it. But, that's not a great answer, in my opinion. It's how can we still give everybody what they want and try to do cuts. And the other thing was, back to the teamwork thing, but we're a team. So, I don't want to have to cut employee hours or anything. So, it's like, can we save in the materials we buy, or not do a less important project and not have to lay people off? That was kind of how the city is looking at it as a whole, is that, obviously employees are more important than projects. So kind of structuring it that way. But, it's easy just to say, throw up your hands and say, this whole thing's out of my control, it's above my head, take the money and we just won't do any work. But, that's not, we need to put on our problem solving hats and really try to think things through and face that challenge.
So, Dan, if someone wanted to get in touch with you, what would be a good way for them to do it? And are you willing to answer questions for people who may want to know a little bit more about your industry and what you do?
Yeah, definitely. They can send me an email, would probably be the best. Do you want me just to spell out my email right here?
Sure.
Or?
Sure. That's up to
So
you if you want to do that or not.
That's fine. Yeah. So my email is dplizga rochestermn.gov. And, I'm happy to answer questions about the construction industry in general, because, my past career. But then if anybody's curious about, jobs with the city or state municipalities, I'm happy to answer those, because, both places you'll find great careers, challenging jobs, great paying jobs, great benefits. So
Excellent, Dan. I appreciate it. Is there anything that we didn't touch on that you think students might need to know?
I guess the one other thing I'll mention is that, so my role obviously is more supervisory, college education, but if that's not you, if you're not good with school, there's a lot of good trade jobs also. You think of electricians, plumbers, all that sort of thing. I mean, those these days are also great paying jobs, great benefits. So, I'd encourage, if you're interested in that, look for an internship or a summer job and get experience with that also, if you're more of a hands-on person and don't want to be on the computer or whatever. You can find great jobs and advancement opportunities working in the field also.
Perfect. Thank you, Dan. I appreciate it very much. I know the students that are watching this will appreciate it as well. And just thank you for your time. I know you're incredibly busy. Thankfully, it didn't snow today.
That is good. Yeah, yeah.
We don't need to see the snowplows quite yet.
Right.
Thanks, Dan.
Yep. Thank you.